Hey, Nashvillians. Welcome to the You Matter Nashville podcast, the place where every story we share is a celebration of you, the heartbeat of our community. I'm Jason Hoover, delighted to be one half of your hosting duo.
And I'm Mindy Hoover, joining you alongside Jason to bring you the stories of inspiring individuals and unsung heroes making a positive impact right here in our hometown.
Every episode is about passions, dreams, and actions that stitch together the Middle Tennessee community.
So if you're looking to get inspired by the good happening around us, or if you want to hear from the change makers who believe, just like us, that you matter, then hit that follow button on your favorite podcast platform.
And if you are looking to make a move in the Middle Tennessee area, Mindy and I are real estate professionals and would be honored to serve you with excellence.
Now, let's dive into another episode of You Matter Nashville.
Welcome to You Matter Nashville. I'm Jason Hoover, joined by my beautiful wife and co-host Mindy. Today we are honored to sit down with Evan and Jenny Owens. They are visionaries and founders of REBOOT Recovery. Now, REBOOT is a faith-led, peer-facilitated recovery model that's helped transform the lives of over 30,000 people dealing with traumas, from military veterans and first responders to everyday individuals struggling with life's hardest hits. With Jenny's background in occupational therapy and trauma rehabilitation and Evan's leadership in nonprofit and tech spaces, they've built a powerful 12-week program that now spans 44 states and 11 countries. We're excited to dive into how REBOOT is helping people not just survive trauma, but truly heal. Evan, Jenny, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Guys, to get us started, can you take us back to the beginning? What inspired the creation of REBOOT Recovery, and how did your personal and professional journeys shape its mission?
Well, that is a long story, so I'll try to keep it brief. But it stemmed out of my work with active duty service members. I was doing brain injury rehabilitation back in 2008 timeframe. And every encounter that I had with a soldier who was dealing with traumatic brain injury was also dealing with trauma because of the context in which those injuries happened. And when we're trying to rehabilitate the physical and mental wounds, there's also, I recognized, a soul and a spiritual wound that's so prevalent. And if you ignore it, then all the work that you can do in these other spaces will never help the person really get back to living a life or embracing a life that they feel is worth living. Because so many of these service members were grappling with depression and deep things like guilt and shame about what had happened that was impacting their relationships with their family members. And so it just was kind of a passion project initially that Evan and I dreamed up of creating a space for these families to come together around this topic of what happened to you beyond just your physical wounds, what happened to your heart, and how can we help rebuild some of those connections with other humans that are in your life, hopefully with God as your creator and your sustainer, and seeing him as an ally and not an enemy. When I think trauma kind of forces us to ask hard questions. Why did bad things happen to good people? Why am I alive when he died? What do I do now that I'm damaged goods, quote unquote? Yeah. How do I find purpose again? So that was really the origin story of REBOOT. But as you mentioned, it's grown well beyond that to address lots of other populations, not just military families.
You know, survivor's guilt is a real thing.
For sure.
And, I've known one that dealt with that, and it was very troubling for him. So I'm sure you probably have helped some of those people as well.
Oh, for sure. I can remember a specific story of a young man who stepped on a pressure plate. I think this might have been in Iraq, and another friend of his who had a young child and a wife did not survive. And he was like, I don't have as much to live for as this guy, but why am I still here and he's not? And that's something those are questions that are not easily answered. But we wanted people to feel safe asking them, to know they're not going to be judged, and to know that they're not the only ones that are grappling with those issues, and to help speak life into those dark places, because you can get down in a hole and just keep spiraling and begin to think that your life does not have worth. So that's where we saw our job is like, we had a different vantage point. Evan and I are not military. We have a heart for military. But we began to say, well, we're standing in a different place. What can we share? What can we offer that maybe they don't have in this time? How can we be a bridge to lay down our lives, so to speak, to help them get from that place of hopelessness, disconnectedness, isolation, to a place of feeling that they belong and that they have worth and they have a future despite what they've walked through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, hope.
Yeah.
When hope is gone.
Yeah.
It's like life is gone.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm sure they struggle with that quite a bit.
Yeah. When you talk about survivor's guilt, we have a whole thing that we teach about the difference between, real guilt or deserved guilt and false guilt. Mm. And I think that there's all these T-shirts around, live life with no regrets, no guilt, all these kind of things. But that's not actually the way that God designed it. Guilt is actually a good thing. Guilt is actually what's a protective instinct to keep us from going and making the same mistakes that we've made in the past. Guilt should lead us towards better choices. But things like survivor's guilt, helplessness guilt, catch-22 situations, et cetera, there's a whole laundry list of types of false guilt. The reason that they're false and the reason they're traps is they don't lead us anywhere. There's no fruit that comes of them because they're based in an infactual twisting of reality. And so what happens is people get caught in these cycles of false guilt where everybody can say, no, that wasn't your fault. And yet you are the one condemning yourself. So how does it end when you're the judge and the jury and you've already found yourself guilty, even though the facts state otherwise? And I think that's the real root. That's an example of a soul wound that when people believe in this false guilt, when they become their own prosecutor, then who will stand with them? And that's really where I think community can come into play and say like, hey, I'm going to defend you, even if you're not ready to defend yourself yet.
Right. And that is true across all types of trauma, from being abused to anything that it can really feed into that. And that guilt also kind of ties into, your empathy for the other person, and it gets complicated. So, I know you guys work a lot with the emotional side, but you're OT, you're occupational therapist. I grew up, my mother is an occupational therapist, but she worked mainly with like stroke patients and trying to get those abilities to come back. How do you use the OT profession to help like revitalize, I guess, the brain and the brain injuries? I would love to hear more about that side.
Well, REBOOT is our nonprofit, and it's something that we do that's non-clinical, but it's rooted in my experience as a clinician. So I don't work clinically anymore, but when I was working clinically with brain injury, we base a lot of our work on neuroplasticity, this idea that you can retrain some of the functions of the brain by putting it in scenarios and giving people opportunities to use skills that maybe have depleted or changed to help the brain be able to navigate new ways to do things and compensate. So there was a whole lot that I could share about what we did I worked at Fort Campbell with brain injury rehab, which is another whole topic, but we were helping soldiers with mild traumatic brain injuries get back to the front lines, which was almost a morally injurious challenge for me, because I was like, I don't want to send you back to the front lines, but that was their motivation. That was their goal. They felt like they didn't want to be the weak link in their unit. So we were really pushing very hard to help these soldiers to fine tune to the highest level of mental ability, almost like a pro athlete. We were doing really fast visual reaction speed type activities, decision making, visual attention or alternating attention, because we know that when you're scanning the battlefield, you've got to be aware of a lot of different sights and sounds and smells and feelings at once. And then ultimately we created a return to duty program, which was an intensive 5-day program where graduates of the traumatic brain injury process had done all the therapies. They went out and did field exercises with the therapists and with what we call green suiters to put them to the test. We did paintball scenarios. We did mass casualty scenarios where they had to do like tactical buddy aid and apply tourniquets. And they used Humvee simulators and shooting ranges and all those kinds of things just to put their cognitive and visual and balance and emotional capabilities to the test to see that they were ready to go back to the front. So that was a really fascinating part of my journey. Not really something that we do now in Reboot, but I can just say that, once an OT, always an OT. So what I feel like I bring into Reboot is really looking at the whole person, recognizing that we're a body, a mind, and a soul, and that we're designed to function in community. And those are all things that I learned back in school to help people to recognize their own inherent worth and their residual skills. Even if you can't do this thing, what can you do? And to hone in on those things. So I think even the idea that there's a readiness for change. And I think Reboot is a step in the journey. Not everybody's not always at the same place as another, but when they come to a group and they see someone who's just a few steps down the road in their recovery, it's inspiring to that person where they're at. It helps them to see hope and to see that there is progress to be made. And Reboot gives them a space and a runway to get from maybe coming in, and this is a true story, sunglasses on, hat on, arms folded, sitting in the corner. I don't know if this is for me. To at the end of 12 weeks, coming in, smiling, bringing a bucket of fried chicken, picking up somebody else's kid and swinging them around. Well, we've seen these transformations. And it's because of that community aspect. That's called, I think it's social behavioral learning, but that's a part of Reboot that I think is probably undergirded within OT as well.
That's got to be so, I don't know.
You got a good brain, Jenny Owens. You got a good brain.
And the roots of OT came from World War I. And
did you say roots?
The roots of OT was built, and they were helping soldiers to rehabilitate from those wounds back in the day before it was even called OT.
I did not know
that either. That's
really
pretty amazing. So, I mean, pretty much the military kind of honed this idea.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so it kind of crossed over into mainstream, into civilian, and now it's kind of going back, but with therapy.
Yeah.
So I love the whole thing. It is a full circle. And, there's jobs that I had, training that I had way back when that didn't think I would ever really use in my life, that God kind of just went, oh, now this is integrated into your new career. And you're going, okay, that wasn't wasted. And so that's something my parents always told me. Nothing's wasted. Nothing you go through is wasted.
Yeah.
You may have to weed the bad things out, but then you got to take those good things and move forward.
That's a Reboot tenet, that God doesn't waste a wound, even though those are things we wouldn't embrace or wish on anyone or want in our lives, but God can take it and help you to discover purpose in that painful experience.
Sometimes I just wish he would start writing on the wall again.
Daniel style, just have a hand appear. That'd be nice. Here's all that you need to learn.
Here you go.
Right. And make it a lot easier. Yeah. But not as fun, I guess, right?
The journey's not there in that. Yeah. So it's all good.
Going back what you said earlier about the the cognitive, there's and I may be saying this incorrectly, correct me if I'm wrong, but the plasticity of the brain is a double-edged sword. Because what you tell it over and over repetitively, that's what you start believing. And so whenever you're going down that dark spiral, you're constantly, you're the judge, the jury, you're talking about just how bad of a life that you have and that everybody else would be better off.
Yeah.
And it's a lie. But, with that 12-step program, it seems like you're changing that. You're kind of flipping it on its head to where it's you're the judge and jury feeding into yourself that you are worthy. Yeah. You do have importance. Your voice does matter. And so it's I love that that you guys have started this and that there are programs for people, because it's isolation is probably one of the worst things that you can do.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I would love to hear about your 12 steps. I know we can't probably go into detail about everything today, but I would love to hear how someone journeys through your program.
Yeah, I can take that. I think just what you were saying real quick about sort of what we tell ourselves we believe. Yeah. There's actually a pretty groundbreaking study that's been done that actually is sort of disproving a 30-year standing sort of positive affirmation theory, that if you look in the mirror and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me kind of thing, that you'll start to believe that's true. And actually the data has actually shown that the opposite occurs. That when you're saying something, to
if
yourself.
you don't believe it.
Right. I was going to say that if you're saying
Okay.
something to yourself that you actually in your innermost person believes untrue, what will happen is your brain actually will start to fortify the belief stronger. It's like it's sort of like trying to convince somebody that disagrees with you politically. The more you argue against them, the more they dig their heels in. The same is true.
So that's what's
why we
wrong
really-
now. I'm like,
Right. So that's why we believe so strongly that getting down to those root wounds, that until you really change the true most inner belief, simply trying to change the behavior of, I'm going to change the way I talk about myself, I'm going to change what I say, that actually really won't really perform very well over a long-term period of time until the core belief actually changes. And so throughout Reboot, that's really what the 12 sessions are really about. And it starts with a 12-week or 12-session program, and then it continues into a year-long aftercare program of community. And so we've got groups in 400 plus locations all over. We got more. We got 3-to-1, civilian to military locations. So if you're not a veteran, you're not a first responder, that's fine. There's tons of Reboot groups for you.
Yeah.
But I do just want to say that pretty much in the program, we set the stage by asking a core question: can your soul be wounded by trauma? And if so, what would the symptoms of a wounded soul be, and how would we go about treating those symptoms? And that's really the origin of a question that most people have never really thought, like, okay, if I'm mind, body, and soul, and I can get on board with my mind and body is wounded by what I experience, can the part that I can't see, my soul, be wounded? And if so, am I treating that? And most people aren't treating that.
Am I just ignoring it?
Or am I just trying to relabel it as a mental health issue when really it's a soul issue? And
that's
so
good.
as they go through these things, we have identified 5 core wounds of how trauma wounds our souls. And we talk through in each of the sessions, weeks 5 through usually 10. Each one of those sessions is specifically set around a specific way that soul wounds occur in us. So it's the wound of loss, the wound of betrayal, the wound of rejection, neglect, and abandonment, the wound of guilt, shame, and regret, the wounds of misplaced identity. And then those wounds manifest through unforgiveness and through bitterness and through isolation and all these other things, which is what we get into in the second sort of stages of the curriculum. And so each week we tackle one of those root wounds, all in a peer-led process, and everybody goes through those wounds. And as they do it, it's interesting. Sessions 4 or 5 or 6, they're like, yeah, that wasn't for me. And all of a sudden you get to the wound that you'll know which session was your wound. Yeah. Because it'll feel like someone's pouring salt on that area, and you'd be like, I don't like this anymore. Yeah. I was cool up until this point. And that's where okay, that's where my wound is. That's how trauma got to me. And then once you understand that, and that was really my heart for Reboot, is I felt like people were fighting an invisible enemy. It's one thing to fight an invisible enemy. It's another thing to fight an invisible enemy that you don't even know is there. If someone could come along and say, hey, there's an invisible enemy you're fighting, and here's how to start winning against that enemy, the wounded of the soul, then they could all of a sudden start healing those invisible wounds. And that was really where my passion began for this, was that simple premise. So
that comes from our military grounding, which was one of the tenets is know your enemy. And that the soldiers taught that to me. And I just had this vision of a lot of our soldiers were like fighting with a blindfold on. It's like they don't even know where the enemy is, what his tactics are, or like you said, they don't even know they're in a fight. And so again, it's the military can inform the civilian population, and we're talking more spiritual warfare sort of analogy. But you do have to know that you're in a fight, and that you have allies and an ally that's going to stand beside you and equip you and empower you. That's one of the things we talk about even before those 5 wounds in the book and in the curriculum. Is just kind of like, trauma has been around, we would say, since the Garden of Eden, since sin entered the world, since Adam and Eve were displaced from the perfect harmonious living with the Lord. And yes, what they lost in that, they had shame, they lost connection with the Lord. They kind of fumbled with their purpose. But we also see in Genesis 3 that God, he covered their shame in that moment. He clothed them. He reminded them specifically of their purpose. And we talk about what Adam's going to do, what Eve's going to do. And we say he began that redemptive plan that is played out in the rest of human history, which is God bringing us back into community with him through Christ. And through Christ's purposeful suffering, we can find that we can rejoin the Lord and find our reconnection with him and with one another. And so that's kind of how the book ends, is like, you have purposeful suffering too. It's a sad reality. We're in this world and it's broken, but there is joy and healing on the other side of it, if you can endure it and you can maybe reframe the way that you see it.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. And You look at the statistics too for faith-based versus not faith-based therapies, and just how much more successful it is for faith-based, having that core of hope and that core of love, and grace. I mean, just knowing that someone is willing there to forgive me, wanting to do that, helping me through the forgiveness. You're not alone in it, but just having that power of not being alone. I mean, you guys see it every single day, but I know that's such a core thing. But I mean, it's staggering, like the difference though between the non-faith and the faith-based.
Well, and I'll just getting my nerd hat on again, but because of my training, we do research of our programs. We've been collecting data, survey-based data since we started essentially. We just published our 8th article in a scientific peer-reviewed journals on the effectiveness of our courses. And these are surveying people who come to our course. Some are believers, some are not believers. Everyone is welcome. And we ask them at the beginning to rate, their anxiety symptoms, their depression symptoms, their feelings of social connectedness, their sense of meaning and purpose, all of those factors. And then we measure them again at the end of the 12 weeks. And since we've started consistently, we've seen large, statistically significant improvements in every category that we measure in all of our populations, both civilian, military, and first responder. And so we're doing our best efforts to put this out into the scientific community to say small group, peer-led, faith-based solutions have a place in trauma healing. They are leading the charge in many ways because everyone's starting to recognize that there's so much fruit to be found in these communities versus just a therapist-client relationship, and communities that can go on and on and on. Like Evan said, it's not just 12 weeks. You get into an aftercare program, you're doing life with these people. And
I like that.
We sustain those gains that way.
Mm-hmm. I like that because a lot of times you can just get into yourself going to a therapist, not knocking therapy. I'm a huge proponent for going to therapy, but having that community on top of that, it's kind of like AA or any other type of group like that. I mean, just having that peer led and that having someone you can call to do life with you, that's huge. You can't do that with a therapist usually. You can't say, hey, I'm having a bad day. They're like, that'll be $150,
And usually those relationships end at some point, and so this can go on as long as you want it to.
It reminds me of a song by Jelly Roll. I don't know if you know Jelly Roll, but
I love jelly rolls.
Jelly rolls, jelly rolls are the best.
He has a song. I don't know the exact title, but I think it's called Winner. But it's about addiction. But he says, or one of the lines is, "Nobody walks through the door a winner," and that resonates. It's like, wow, we always think we've got to be perfect. We've got to understand our feelings. We've got to I guess level up to this expectation. And, but we can't do that. And if we grade ourselves based on what the community wants us to be, then we're going to fail. We're going to fail. And when we fail, we're going to be hurt. So I love the after, the 12 weeks is great. And then the afterwards, it keeps feeding that person so that they don't go back down.
Absolutely.
Down that spiral. So I love that piece of it.
I just want to toss in, can I toss in 20 cents real quick on that though? Just real quick.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I work with so many great recovery organizations around the country, a lot of even Christian faith-based substance abuse recovery organizations. And one of the things that I think the Lord's really been challenging me over the last couple of years, and I was trying to understand why I would go to these conferences or speak at them or whatever and feel like we're the same, but we're also not. I always would leave feeling like we're so close. We say a lot of the same things, but I think that one of the fundamental differences is what are we rallying around? At Reboot, I don't really want to build a community that rallies around how broken and wounded we are. I want to build a community that rallies around how redemptive God is and how he can redeem things. And I think that I think the mistake that a lot of times what happens in these communities where they actually become
their identity.
They become a little bit, what's that called when you eat humans? Like cannibalistic. Like
That's
they sort of eating themselves is
you have to finish that metaphor.
The end. Thank you all. Cannibalism is bad.
All right, and that is
You
a
heard
wrap
it here,
on this.
folks, on the pod. No, I think that's where it can start becoming an issue is when we start saying we're really rallied around this codependent, we're all broken together indefinitely.
Yes.
Right.
And I don't think that that's what Paul speaks of when he says, I've learned to be content in all situations. He says, we're just all broken and messed up together. And we're so wounded that we can't go out and minister to a hurting world. And I worry that's where so many of even Christian people are getting in culture is that we're so self-focused. And yes, we have our therapists and we have our self-care regimens and we've got our boundaries and we've got all these books that we read. God love all those authors. But also if we're so isolated and we're so convinced of our own brokenness all the time that we can't go mend other people who are broken, then we're not mirroring the great physician, and I think that becomes a selfish faith. And I'm not sure that's where the Bible wants to leave us. Right. I think we come in where we're not all winners. But I think that we are more than conquerors, and I think rallying around the fact that you can't do that on your own. Anyway, I'll start preaching, but I just think I do think that's what I've really been feeling convicted of over the last couple of years is like, that's the kind of community we want to build, not one that rallies around, wow, look how wounded we are together. Anyway, I know he has questions.
And one of the things
that
we discovered after doing this for so long, it's just that one of the first signs that healing is happening in an individual is that they're able to see someone's pain outside their own and respond
empathy,
to it.
Which is what she said, yep.
And that's why this movement became a movement. We didn't expect it to. We just started something in our living room for a small group of people who we thought were hurting. But when we started to see people growing and looking outside themselves and taking what their pain had been and recycling it and using it to help encourage somebody else, we were like, ooh, there's something here. And it began to grow wings beyond just us. And that's why we have thousands of people volunteering to lead these courses in all those locations Evan talked about, because they've seen that too. And they've seen it in their own lives and they're starting to see it in their group participants too.
Right.
Right. And having people that have gone through the program then take leadership roles. I have an education background, taught about 15 years, but it was in music. But with that, my goal was by the time from freshman to senior year that they not only learned from me, but they were also turning around and leading groups and leading rehearsals. And, there was days, that I was sick. There would be a sub in the room, but they would be leading the class and we weren't getting behind. But the thing about that, when you learn and then you learn to teach others, there's something that happens in that transition and it gets deeper. You're rooted. So scaffold teaching is something that we actually teach a lot, in the schools is that, if we can teach them, but if they can turn around and teach someone else, it just goes so much deeper into their psyche. It becomes more, They believe it more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They believe it.
Yep.
And it's just, there's empowerment in teaching others.
Yeah. And empowerment, that's kind of what Evan was speaking to, is we really want to equip and empower people to go be a world changer. Don't just
I think it's a little bit like if you pick a bunch of fruit from a tree, rather, and you just put it in the basket, it's going to start going bad. I think that at some point you're meant to go take that fruit and start giving it to other people. Right. Because you're producing so much fruit in your life, you want to share the fruit. And I think that, there's a level of healing that we can get to that if we don't start sharing that healing with others, we actually will start reversing the other direction again. It'll start rotting again. Because I think that there's levels of healing I think you can only get to by loving someone else who's going through something, by teaching somebody else, by being a leader in someone's life.
Or being vulnerable and sharing your story.
And sharing your story, whatever it is. Like I think there's these levels that you can get to. Level might be the unfair word. Level's probably not the best word. But I think there's chambers of healing that are only unlocked when you're leading someone else.
I believe that
you're
completely.
Loving someone else.
I believe that. I'm interested on the evolution of the program. So you said you started it in your living room with probably a handful of people, but you eventually got with 30 people. Okay,
it was small,
very very humble beginnings.
Yes.
So how did it go from that to a 12-week program, and then other people taking it to more states and countries?
Yeah.
Initially, we had some amazing doors open at Fort Campbell. We were doing it in our living room, but then through some connections that I had with my work there, a gentleman who ran a facility who was a retired chaplain said, why don't you come bring this on post and use our kitchen, use our childcare? It was a tremendous blessing. And they flung the doors open wide for us. So we started advertising. I'd share with the therapists on post or the, nurse practitioners. And within a year, what started with 3, we had to bring chairs and tables from our own church because we ran out. We had 50 plus people at this group, which was humongous.
Within months.
And it just, I don't know how we got connected with other cities, but
I think.
How did we even get connected with them originally? I don't remember.
It just snowballed. There you go.
I do think that, yes, but I'm also asked a lot, like when I go places, like people will come up and they'll be like, hey, I have this ministry, they'll email, I have this ministry that I want to start. It's a lot like Reboot, and the first question I always ask them is I say, who's following you now? Like who's already benefiting from your teaching? And a lot of times they haven't even really piloted it. It's sort of like this idea, and that's fine. Like I've been there, but I also think that, I don't think that it should be understated that Jenny and I both kept our full-time jobs and we ran this ministry in really one location, or we had 3 total, but 3 locations for like 4.5, almost 5 years. So when you do that, you get you get to know your curriculum really, really well. And at that point, we didn't have a 12-week session. We were writing new content every single week,
based kind of on the needs that were showing up.
I never want to be the college professor that like wrote their curriculum back in 1979, and they just get up and teach the same curriculum every single semester.
Right.
Like I don't want to reheat leftovers. And so, in all that being said, is I think over time, really, we didn't write the first curriculum. What really happened was based on how people were responding to what was being shared and what was sticking, we sort of started making these mental notes of like,
and what they were telling us.
Right. And then what they would give in feedback. And we were also meeting with people one-on-one at a very high volume. Like we had people living with us. We had
soldiers.
It was a lot.
PTSD.
It was a lot. It was too much. I don't highly recommend the exact path we
were
did,
fully immersed.
But we were missionaries. We were military missionaries.
Of military
trauma. Full moved to a military community. Anyway, I don't think that's the right path for everyone. For us, our marriage, we were also older. We didn't
have any kids at the time.
Right, and we had income to be able to make some of these risks and do these things that other people didn't. But I say all that to say that that's really, I think, the piece of the story it can sound like. And then it just, God just multiplied. That's kind of not true. I mean, really, for 5 years, I think he just kept teaching us and saying, are you going to be faithful with this? Are you going to be faithful with this? And then because of my background, I just have a personality that, like, if I'm going to get involved in something, I'm going to find a way for it to grow. I think I have like a
big vision.
I just have like a weird broken brain cell or two or something that didn't quite land right in my psyche.
No, it's great.
You're a go-getter. You're a go-getter.
Yay, we have a group. That's probably where it would have been for me. And that'd been fine. I did not have the big vision that he had.
And it's funny. People all the time would be like, did you ever think it would get this big? And I'm like, oh, we're not even close to how big it's going to get. Like that's literally my personality. Because I think what's capable of when you empower people at a local level and you get out of the way. And so anyway, yeah. So how do we transition? We start off with military in 2016.
We started the military in 2011, and then we left our jobs.
But I'm saying we released the first curriculum in 2016.
Okay. Yeah.
The formal curriculum.
Yep.
And then started running Facebook posts and some ads, and basically said, hey, here's some stories of vets. Do you want to start a reboot group? And shockingly, there were a ton of Evan and Jenny's out there who were like, we want to do more than play in a golf tournament and run a 5K for vets.
I love that.
That's awesome.
And we want to use our pain and we want to use our story to be able to help the next man or woman up. And so we gave them like a franchise version of Reboot. We're like, here you go. Take this and roll with it. And it just started. Then that's really when it just, like, there's some miraculous stories. One, the military they didn't just give us access. I mean, they gave us an office. They issued us a non-commissioned officer in charge who worked for us for a period of time.
That's incredible.
We applied for our very first grant in the history of the organization. I've never written a grant before. I had no clue what I was doing. I wrote this grant. We submitted to this foundation. She said, I'd like to do a site visit to your offices.
We didn't really have an office.
We ain't got no office. I mean, we barely had a
That's why we
program
want the
name.
grant.
That's why we're writing you.
Yeah. Like she's like, I want to come to site visit. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, just come to one of our groups. Like that's the best we can do. She came early. She hung out with some of us for a while. And the end of the meeting, she was like, I think you guys should ask for more. And we had asked for, I think, $21,000, which for me, I was like, my ship's come in. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
And then I said, like 45. And she's like, I still think you should ask for more. And I was like, 70? And she was like, more like 120 something. And I was like, excuse me? And so we wrote our very first grant we ever won was a $127,000 grant. And that was the largest grant the organization ever won up until last year. So to put that in perspective, it was like the Lord's going to I'm going to give you a ton of abundance up front to bring the team on you need. And then you'll figure it out as you go. But it was almost a decade later before we ever won a grant that large again. Again, there's just because I was like, this fundraising thing's easy. All you got to do is write grants. People give you like $150K. It's so easy. I found out
they'll give you more than you want.
That, just no. We had a guy. He was a director who worked for Homeland Security, not the director, but a director level. Who his wife and him went through our program. They were in DC. He was like, hey, I want to quit my job. I said, don't quit your job. He said, too bad. I've already quit my job. He quit his job to come be my COO and help me build this thing. He raised his full support.
He raised his own salary like a missionary.
It's crazy. And I mean, there was these things that the Lord was just blessing us. So then that took off 2016, 2017. By 2018, there was a shooting at a nightclub in Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. We had a military group. We decided, hey, we need to do something for first responders. We merged with another small nonprofit. They only had 2 people. They were the mentors of Jenny and I. They're older, Chris and Renilla Adsett, and they are the godmother and godfather of faith and trauma writing. I mean, if you ever want to read the experts, go to them, not us. We're like a bad photocopy of them. And so we released the first responder curriculum, and then in 2020 we released what's called Trauma Reboot, which is really the program that kind of put us on the map. Before then, we were sort of this niche military group, military and first responder. But really, once we branched out to Trauma Reboot, that's when all the big conferences started.
Trauma Reboot, the civilian general population.
That's what led to the book and tours and all that kind of stuff led out of really the Trauma Reboot curriculum. Okay,
so there's different categories of reboot or different.
There's 3 programs. Military reboot, first responder reboot, and trauma reboot. Correct. They all follow the same 12-week faith-based, peer-led
but they are different
approach. But the curricula are unique to the population.
Different needs.
While still hitting those same what Evan talked about.
Even some of the wounds are different though.
But mostly.
Mostly, yeah.
But yeah, they're tailored.
Okay.
That's really cool.
Now you also have a book.
Yes, and
who doesn't nowadays? I mean, that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's like writing a book. Hey, listen, if you're thinking about writing a book, let me tell you, you will not get rich by writing your book. Let me just tell you that straight up right now.
That's not our story.
The publishers take all that money. Straight up, real talk.
So do you have a copy of your book?
It's right there.
You know what? I just happen to have one handy right here off camera.
It's on the shelf.
Dramatic move across the room. Ooh.
There you go. It's called Healing What's Hidden.
It's a little blurry of a copy of a thing, but look, it's a rug. It's actually my rug.
It's hard to tell on this picture.
I took this picture. You can see how much our publishing company was.
Oh, be careful! Be careful! You're on podcast.
Okay.
We love our fake books.
They love this was my concept. Was what's under the rug. Healing kind of the things that get swept under the rug. Healing what's hidden.
I love that.
It's kind of cool that it's my rug. I like that about it.
That's clever.
I see that rug every day.
That is clever.
Anyway, and I'm just going to start at page 1. So everybody buckle in.
Okay.
We're just going to read through this book real quick live on the pod. Here we go. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it starts off with this very simple statement. You aren't broken, you're wounded. And that's good. Wounds can heal if proper steps are taken. That's the opening statement of the book, basically. And isn't that what we all want to kind of be told when we feel like we're in like a shattered place? Like, hey, you're not really broken. You're actually wounded. And wounds can heal. That's good news.
Yeah, it's temporary.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing. That's, Jenny actually says in the book, she says that trauma is our personal intersection with the brokenness of the world. Recovery is our personal intersection with the redemptive heart of God. And I think that's probably my favorite sentence that we've ever written and ever taught. I think that's Reboot in a pill.
Man, way to go, Jenny.
Thank you.
You got a good brain. I
I'm
already
just
said that
saying,
once.
it came to me while I was in the bathroom. Like the greatest nuggets of information.
I've not had any of those ideas. I've had some ideas, but they've never been that good.
Just telling you.
Jenny, I think you're oversharing on the pod now.
I didn't say it what I was doing in the bathroom. I don't remember. All I remember is just that I was in the bathroom. I might have been getting ready.
Yeah, let's go.
You think a lot while you're getting ready or in the shower.
Thinking about how much you love our publisher.
I love our publisher.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it sounds like y'all have fun.
We have to.
Yeah, well,
The work
Isn't that the
we do-
truth?
You also think not that many couples. You all get it.
Yeah.
We raised 3 kids together. We work together, and we're happily married. We're literally, there was a period of probably like 4 years where we were together literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, indefinitely. Because it was like most people, they go to work and they come home. We were like, we go to work and they're there, and then we go to lunch and then we're home. And it was awesome. So we definitely know each other.
We have a thing called mind meld.
It's to a weird level. It's
we finish each other's
sandwiches.
Yes. Disney references. Oh, can we say that on podcast?
This program not sponsored by that company with the mouth here.
I know when we first started working together, our friends were like, "Y'all are going to kill each other," because we both had different careers, totally different things. And so when we got into real estate or started doing podcasts and all the different things, they're like, "You're together all the time. Someone's going to kill the other." But we're fine. We're fine.
She takes a
You know what I
vacation
just
every
say
year.
now? Well, maybe for just respond to like, yeah, maybe for lesser marriages.
Oh,
lesser marriages?
Walk away. No, I'm just playing. Don't say that. Don't say that.
But I think, when you're working together all the time, I mean, you don't have to catch up from your day. There's no like mundane conversation. And, so how'd your day go? How did this?
It's actually funny when she started homeschooling a little bit more, like she'd come home and we actually had to learn what the rest of marriages learn in their first like 10 months is that question.
Right.
Like, how was your day? And I was like,
because we weren't together the whole day.
What do you mean, how was my day? You were there for all of it. Now she's like, how was my day? And I was like, I don't want to talk about my day. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
You should have been there if you loved me.
You should have been there.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to like learn that very basic communication of,
catching up.
How are you feeling about your day? Be like, man, this is a lot of sharing for me. I've ran out of words. And
we had a very unconventional start to our marriage as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lived in 2 separate states.
Our
first year of marriage, or first 6 months.
For 6 months.
Yeah, she lived in Texas and I was here in Tennessee. So she actually had to fly back for our anniversary.
Our 1 year.
Anniversary.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That is unconventional. Well, you guys had to make up for lost time.
Right.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
Jobs, making money.
Yeah, it was for career, and that's a long story. But we ended up back in Tennessee.
Yeah,
but we did get have a kid while we were in Texas, and so what they say about those from Texas or born in Texas, they'll
tell you they're from Texas.
Oh
yeah, so he's never even actually knows Texas because he left
He was like one.
But he's got the attitude like, I'm a Texan.
I'm from Texas.
Oh my. Wow.
Like back when he was in grade. Yeah, when back in grade school, they'd ask, introduce yourself, and he was like, I'm from Texas.
like, okay,
you lived there 1 year.
Yeah, you're like, how do you claim that?
I was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana. You never hear people say that. Like.
You don't
proud and
being a Hoosier,
Indiana. Like nothing against Indiana. I'm just trying to say like that doesn't have the cachet that cachet. No, is that the right word?
I don't know.
Sachet.
I have no idea.
Well, saying that you're from the Nashville area now has clout. So
it does.
It
really does.
So I don't know if he'll go to college and he'll be like, "Well, I'm from Nashville." Or if he's going to be I'm from Texas.
We now live in Clarksville, but it doesn't have the clout. So we often say we're just from outside of Nashville.
Unfortunately,
Clarksville
power by proximity.
Yeah.
Or it's even worse. They're like, "Oh, you're from Clarksville. Were you in the military?" No. Like, well, then why are you in Clarksville? It's like, I'm on vacation. I don't want to start counseling you around trauma right now because I know if I tell you what I do,
it's a long story.
When I get my hair cut every time, oh, you work in trauma? Let me tell you. And then like instead of like the barber talking to me, I'm doing like ministry to the barber. You guys think I'm
telling people what we do is always not a short.
It is the shortest. Like people, I just want to be like, I'm an accountant. like, something they're not going to talk to me about.
No, it's good though. It's good for them to learn
I'm just
about
being
it.
funny.
But it's not a short story.
No, it is. It's just always, they're like, oh, wow.
Oh my goodness. So I'm curious so as you get people that lead these, the groups all over, do you get couples like yourself and like us, that are, married couples that actually take that on and do it
Ideally.
together?
Yeah.
It is ideally. Okay.
Yeah. We love when couples step forward. One, because I think it's beauty in relationship. I think there's something so special about being able to kind of collaborate. Plus, honestly, I think it's one of the best adventures you can go on with your spouse is to walk through somebody else's pain with them, and it'll humble you and it'll increase your gratitude so much. And you'll find yourself with more joy than you had in a long time, because you'll stop comparing yourselves to the best and you'll start being like, man, I'm just blessed to be in this person's life, at the level that I'm at. So that's really cool. And then also I think couples have a unique ability to sort of process what they experience in the groups. So, that's been a big part of our marriage really, is she has a conversation or I have a group or something, and then being able to come back and process that in a healthy way, because you don't want to just store it up. We have to, it's not trauma dumping. That's not what I'm describing, but we do have to process that in a healthy way. So I think.
Yeah. And I was just saying, from the beginning, we've always encouraged the person who've experienced trauma, whether the military, first responder or other, to bring their loved one and support people with them. Even if they haven't experienced that trauma. So in the military, a lot of times people would raise their eyebrows. They're like, oh, you have the wives or the husbands come too? And we're like, well, it affects them in a different way, but just as much. And so then the spouses, if there's a spouse helping lead, they have someone to look to that really understands their lived experience as a spouse who was here managing all the day-to-day stuff, the kids, the lawn, the financial stuff while their service member's gone, and then them coming back and encountering kind of a change. And then so from the beginning, I think it was vital that we had the spouses included. And that's true in the first responder community as well. But I think even in Trauma Reboot, it probably happens a little less, but I think it's really important that you bring in your support network so that they can have a shared language, as you were saying, as you process that stuff outside the group.
Yeah.
And kind of heal together. I really love that. I can't imagine. I've always said I would be the worst military wife ever. That is a calling all in itself, but to have a different person come home each time to a different degree, because what they have faced, the trauma they have faced, it's nothing easy to do. So that's so incredible that you guys include the spouses in that, and to build them up and to see the change or to know what they need to do to help the transition. So
exactly. Yeah.
That's incredible.
If you don't mind, share a little bit about the international part of it and how did that get started? And do you travel and start these groups? And maybe some of the obstacles that you
used to. Yeah. So, some of our staff here, it's pretty wild. There was years where if we wanted to start a group, we would load up in a van on a Friday afternoon and drive to this location to set up a group. We don't do a
workshop to train the leaders.
We don't have to do that anymore, thanks to Zoom and technology, et cetera. Right. But I say all that to say that the international thing, I'll be really, really honest and transparent. I think that anybody who's led an organization that's faith-based knows that Brian and our team talks about having the gift and discernment to be interruptible. And I think that sometimes the best opportunities the Lord presents you are not the ones in your strategic plan. Mm-hmm. And you think about it, I'm not sure the Israelites came to the Red Sea and they were like, all right, Moses, what's the plan? He was like, oh, I got it. 3 steps. I'm going to part the waves. We're going to crawl. I don't think that's how it happened. Right. And so I think that strategic plans are great, but I also think that they need to be interruptible. And so for us, international was an interruption to our plan. Similarly, working in prisons across the country now has been a big interruption to our plan. We're in 50 plus facilities in a matter of 12 months. We're in 50 facilities. I've not experienced anything growing like the prison program since it feels very
like the military
akin to what we did in the military.
Yeah.
That's the only way to describe it. It's like the same spiritual feeling of whoa, it's like a feeling bigger than us that's happening that we're just sort of watching happen. But I say international, it actually began with there was a group in Ukraine who took some of our curriculum with them and gave it to the people in Ukraine. And the people in Ukraine, through a network of people, made a Ukrainian version that they bootlegged and photocopied of our curriculum
And
translated it fully and began distributing all over the country. And it was so funny because the team, I remember one of my operators at the time, my director of operations, was like, "Hey, this is copyright infringement. What do we do?" And I was like, "We do nothing." Like, this is great. What an opportunity. And
this was before the current war.
Yeah.
Which was also providential.
Yeah. We were there before the war. And so when the war took off, we've been there ever since. Our team has gone multiple times. 2 of our team members just got back 3 weeks ago from a almost 4-week trip inside on the front lines of Ukraine. Wow. And they continue to do that.
They lead workshops where they bring
and not just anybody. It's Chris
hundreds.
Ranella, who were in their late 70s from our team, who just went. Jess from our team has gone. Mm-hmm. And then out of that, we also started having a huge Spanish-speaking population. So we converted our curriculums into Spanish as well and are seeing those programs expand. I'll just say those programs.
Australia has been around for many years.
Australia, yeah. The Collins lead that. Andy and Zoe Collins lead our Reboot Australia. They are the national leaders there. I just say all this to say that international expansion has not been part of our strategy. It just hasn't been. It's very much been this organic. It's the entrepreneurial. I don't like the word tithe actually, but it's the entrepreneurial giving that we give back. That when an opportunity opens up in a nation, especially if it's a somewhat impoverished or at crisis nation, we don't really think about the money. We don't really think about the systems. But we are at a point now where we're having to say no to a lot of nations that are coming to us. And it's because logistically we don't have the infrastructure or the funding yet to manage the shipping, the coaching, because when you're coaching against 12 different time zones,
that's tough,
right? There's a lot more complexity than what you might think to be in a global entity.
Right.
And so we're praying that the Lord's going to bring us a missionary alliance partner, not the missionary alliance, but an alliance with a missionary organization that can leverage their international network to be able to help partner with us in that way. And that's something that we're praying about. So anybody listening, you guys can maybe help us network in that space because the Lord's opening these doors, but we just don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah, because there's translation and contextualization and, like you said, local printing and
fulfillment,
technology
coaching,
limitations.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah.
We just got our website to where it can be translated into other languages, but it's not perfect.
Right. Yeah. I mean, AI still doesn't use local colloquialisms correctly and all that stuff.
Right.
So anyway, I wish there was a really cool, and in the next 5 years, we're going to do this. I have no idea.
No, that's it's interesting how things just organically expand.
Especially it's 15 countries, and we plan on only being in the States.
Yeah,
and that's happened in 18 months.
That's crazy.
Wow. It's crazy. Yeah,
so, what are your plans? I know those were not in your plans, but what are you hoping is the next milestone you want to master for your organization?
I just want to do podcast conversations endlessly.
Well, we in 2020 we started really getting intentional about our strategic planning and alignment. We utilize a tool that kind of helps us to focus around these long and short-term goals. And we set 5-year goals in 2020, which is
a long time.
It was a long time out. And we literally did not know what to predict or project. And I feel like it was the Holy Spirit, because the wild thing is that we're nearing, obviously, the end of that 5 years. We set goals for a number of people we were going to reach, number of programs we were going to be offering.
Revenue, staff size, all that stuff.
And God has just made a way for us to meet or exceed almost every single one of those. I mean, we're on track. We just reviewed all of this for hitting, serving 50,000 people in a 5 year.
Attending a course, not just
that's amazing.
Handing them a book, but actually going through a program.
Yeah, which is unfathomable. So all that to say,
we were happy with 3.
We're at a point where we're looking ahead now, but we don't have a strategic plan set because we're kind of coming to the end of this current time frame. So we are doing a lot of praying and asking for wisdom and discernment and unity amongst our team and our board.
September, we have
in September, we're going to be doing kind of a big strategy retreat to try to nail some of those things down. But we do know, as Evan said, prison and international are emerging areas. Another area that keeps coming up is teens and adolescents. Not promising that we're going to go down that road because it's rife with challenges, but there's definitely a need. We are asked almost every week, when are you going to be able to offer your programs for younger people? So that's something that we're considering. And beyond that,
I think we're also making conscious decisions not to try and pump ourselves up, meaning like we're not in the self-promotion business, and we've made a conscious decision that's not the path of, we don't want to be Christian celebrities. That's not. Now, if the Lord, if to do the mission, the Lord requires that, then we'll submit to that. Like, I'm not afraid of that, but I'm also, that's not what I'm trying to build. I'm not trying to build the Evan and Jenny platform. The person in the local community who's leading the Reboot group, I don't care if they never know who Reboot is or who we are. Like, I want them to know that person, because that's the one who changed their life and kept them from completing suicide, or kept their marriage together, or kept them from cutting themselves or hurting themselves in some serious way. And so a lot of people would say that like as like false humility, but like, no, Reboot really does believe what I just said, like top to bottom, every staff member here.
That's what works. If it becomes top heavy, it's going to break down.
And also, we have to do it forever.
Right. Which we don't know how feasible that is.
What if we get burned out? What if we get, it can't be about Jenny and I and our story.
Right. True. Yeah, the infrastructure has to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't be.
Well, I'm excited to see how the prison ministry just blossoms, and continues to grow. We talk about prison reform a lot. There's a lot of changes that need to be happening. I mean, there's
missing opportunity.
Yeah. Growing up, I was always taught hurt people hurt others, and so how do we stop that cycle? How do we teach them to love themselves and to make better decisions? And, so I think it's kind of a forgotten population. So I just think it's so important to be teaching in there. My goodness.
And it's crazy, the data. I literally just wrote a whole paper on this, so I could go on and on about it. But trauma is, I think, I actually would argue it and poverty are the leading causes of incarceration.
Yes.
And you look at people who were abused as children who then go abuse. You look at people who were neglected as children who then go and cause harm, who, because of those pain, they start using substances and end up addicted, which leads to incarceration, violent crime. You didn't feel like you were neglected and abandoned as a child, so you went and found somebody who said you belong here, and you got in gang violence. Every story begins with trauma. And so for us, we've had so many conversations. I'll get, overwhelmed thinking about it. But people say, if I would have had this when I was 18, I wouldn't be doing 25 to life. If I would have had this, I didn't know the battle I was fighting. I thought it was a different fight. And it's really cool. If anybody wants to go with us, we go to prison grads all the time. You guys should come.
We do a graduation at a local facility. It's hour and a half away, but we get to talk to these gentlemen
we go
every couple months. It's impactful. But one gentleman recognized. Now, he was asking me about the youth because he's got a child on the outside, and he's recognizing, like, I don't want to perpetrate the trauma further on my family because I want them to not follow in my footsteps. How can I help them? And I just thought, wow, that's so beautiful that he's beginning to think and see that there's a generational pattern there.
Right. It's like if you could stop them, even before they get to youth detention center, And, but like you said, it's a totally different mindset and psychology when you're going from adults to adolescents, and, so it's.
You got to get to the core of it, or you're always going to have prisons. You gotta get to the core and fix it.
Yeah. And we're really honored. There's a group that I do want to do this for them, just because, I think there's a lot of publicity, and I have a lot of relationships. There's a private prison company called Core Civic that used to be called Capital Corrections of America, or Correctional Corporation of America. And I'll just share, private prisons have a lot of bad press. Even here in Tennessee, one of the prisons that's on the national news right now is Hartsville's, is Trousdale Turner, which is where we have our biggest Reboot presence in the nation. And I'll just say that I can't speak to what happens at all the local prison levels. I'm not going to pretend to, but I can say that at Core Civic, they've partnered with Reboot to help us expand into dozens of prisons around the U.S. because there are people who are in that organization who are high up, who do believe in a reformed model, who do believe in programs that can benefit people. Now, whether or not those voices are as loud as they could be or not, I'm not getting into the politics of it, but I do want people to hear there are dollars being invested, there's resources being given, there's access being given that doesn't have to be. And so I do want to go on the record just thanking them for that. And it's not just us. There's other ministries that they're pulling in that are transforming the lives of these individuals. And that deserves to be noted because nobody ever says nice things.
And you're very right. You never hear positive sides of it.
Correct.
Right.
And these individuals work their butts
tails
off.
Yeah.
They are working so hard.
Thankless job.
Yeah. I mean,
with not much.
Yeah. I think about like Rodney Quinn or Chaplain Fletcher or, some of these people who are working 70 hours a week to serve these inmates who they truly see a seed of potential in them that these individuals don't even see in themselves. Yeah. And it's so beautiful and humbling. And these dudes are like walking angels. Like they're incredible. Yeah.
I was just sharing with Jason this morning a ministry in New Mexico where they do the daddy-daughter prom.
Oh,
yeah.
And I said, look at this. Well, it just humanizes the whole situation, and it's just, I have a prom dress nonprofit, so that tugged at my heartstrings a lot, but I'm like, how incredible though, did these kids, it's not their fault. They need these moments with their fathers and their moms. But it just takes people seeing that is a ministry that working and loving on people that are incarcerated, that it's so, so important. It's like Jason was talking about the winners. You want to work with the winners. You want to work with the people, coming into the church doors and they look perfect and all this stuff. But we're leaving a whole population out of people who are so desperately needing our help and needing God. And so I love it. I'd so love to hear today that you guys are reaching beyond that border and helping in that way.
Yeah. I've had to come to grips with, I don't know if I was as attuned to my own depravity as I needed to be to understand how my own sin impacts the Lord. Meaning when we went to these prisons and you'd have these individuals who we knew had murdered individuals, we knew the stories of exactly the type of child crimes they had committed, sexual offenses, etc. And then they're coming up to you in tears and they're giving you these giant hugs, telling you how thankful they are. And you're hugging them. And on one hand, you're so proud and grateful for them and you love them. On the other hand, you're completely disgusted by what they've done. And if the gospel has not really saturated your heart to the point that you've started to get to the point that you're like, I am that sinful, to realize like I am that man to the Lord, that while he hugs me, he's also disgusted by my sin.
Oh, that's so good.
And I think as I get to that point, that's probably been the biggest ministry in my life of doing the prison ministry, is how much I've started to realize like I'm them, I'm them, though my sins are as scarlet, and
as white as snow.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
So what encouragement would you offer to someone listening who's wondering if, this is right for them? What would you say to them about taking that first step?
What's that lady say on the video that one time? What have you got to lose except for your pain?
Yeah, right. That's good. And another guy said, if you're on the fence, jump off.
Lean this way. Yeah, lean this way. Yeah, I would just say, truly, give us 3 weeks of a 12-week program that's going to be less than 6 hours of your time. And if it's not for you, then cool. Don't come back. But if it is for you, you're invited regardless of what you've been through or what your views are. Even if you're a person that you've heard us talking about God and Jesus on this podcast, and you're like, man, this is just a bunch of preaching. You won't experience that. There's the goal is not to convert you. The goal is not to proselytize and evangelize to you. The goal is to help you heal and
to love you.
You don't have to embrace my faith in order to heal. Some of the wounds that we've talked about, you can heal those through our process and through our programs. Not all of them, but most of them you can heal through sort of mental acuity and mental processes. So I would encourage you all to give it a shot. And I think worst case scenario, you meet some other people who have gone through a similar circumstance, and you'll feel encouraged by knowing that there's a light at the end of that tunnel that you're in. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And if you're not near a group, this book is available on Amazon.
It's cheap right now, I think.
It's got interactive portions, QR codes and videos and things. So you can get more deeply connected with our organization and with our content than just by reading the book. That's our goal, is really to help to bring you into the family, so to speak, and to be there, be a resource for you long term.
And now everybody can go on your website and they can find a group that is near them.
Yep. Go to the rebootrecovery.com and click the join page. And then you'll be able to search by program and location. But also, if you're stirred by hearing this because you've seen trauma in your own life or in those around you, and you've maybe lived through it, you've learned from it, and you want to help lead others out of it, hit the lead button on our webpage, because we're always praying for you. We're always praying that the Lord will draw the harvesters, because that's what he's done from the beginning. He's continuing to do it, because the harvest is plenty and the workers are few, but we know there are many who have a story to tell and whose pain can be repurposed to
and the
help
person
someone
who's
else.
like, well, I don't have what it takes to lead this.
It's plug and play.
It's like, if we can do it, you can definitely do it.
Yeah.
I promise.
Teachings are video based. Everything is laid out for you through an online tool. We try to make it as easy as we can for these groups to be facilitated.
That's right.
Perfect.
That's amazing. Well, Evan, Jenny, thank you both. Thank you so much for just all that you do. Thank you for the just such an open and heartfelt conversation today. You know, I know Mindy and I, we can definitely feel your passion, and I'm excited to see where you go, because it seems like you're open to having your own plans disrupted for something greater.
Yeah.
And
It's the story of our life. But it's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for taking time, coming on and sharing with our listeners. And, you know, thank you for just pouring into everybody. You know, the world is a better place because of people like you, and better for all the people that also start these groups and reach out to the people, all because you started it. So thank you. All right.
Thanks
And
for letting us share.
yeah. And to our listeners, if you or someone you love is walking through trauma, we just encourage you to visit their website. Your website is rebootrecovery.com, correct?
Correct.
All right.
You got it.
And on there, as they said, that you can find the courses, resources, and different opportunities. You can also check out their book. What's it? Healing What's Hidden. Healing What's Hidden, which actually it dives deeper into the reboot approach, correct? And and thank you all for tuning in. And if today's episode was encouraging to you, please share it. Leave a review, but most importantly, share it with people that you think this may touch them, may change them. And if nothing else, just send them the website. So, but thank you for tuning in and listening. And until next time, always remember that you matter, your voice matters, and together we can make a positive impact right here in our community. And that brings us to the end of another episode of You Matter Nashville.
We hope today's show has left you feeling as uplifted and inspired as we are. Remember, the spirit of Nashville lives in all of us, and every small act of kindness echoes throughout the community.
A huge thank you for listening and even being a part of our You Matter community. If you love this episode, please share with friends and leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners and spread the love.
And if you know anyone that is looking to make a move to Middle Tennessee area, we are real estate professionals known as the Hoover Team, and we would be honored to serve them with excellence.
Until next time, keep making a difference, Nashville. You matter more than you know.